Hey, it's the Axle Shifter here, and I'm back with another Multiverse Wars episode number 36. And today, this is going to be a battle between two immortal beings from their respective universes. And that is Joseph from Super Mario Logan versus Kenny from South Park. Now, both of these characters are immortal, so it's pretty much going to be impossible for them to die permanently, but this fight is based on who would kill off each other first, and who would ultimately win the first encounter battle, which immortal being. So, without further ado, let's get straight into this fight. First, we're going to be starting off with Joseph, of course. Joseph is his friend from school. Yes, that's canonically Joseph's last name. Is one of the main protagonists of the Super Mario Logan series. He is one of Junior's friends and often joins him in his wacky scenarios whenever he's doing something wrong or potentially right. No matter what, Joseph will always manage to get her with him. But it turns out that Joseph's house is in fact really bad, and also his mother is dead, and he also just lives in the worst possible conditions you can ever have. But now let's really talk about his powers, abilities, and feats. In the SML episode Superpowers, Junior, Cody, and Joseph gain superpowers, of course, and because of these powers, they gain new abilities. Like Joseph, for example, gains super speed, means that he can run super fast in a few seconds, and also has manipulation with fire, but he's not immune to fire. He can himself turn on fire, but he practically dies and burns to a crisp, so it's practically useless against an opponent, unless he does try to burn them and touch their bodies with it. But then again, I mean, hey, he is immortal, but still. And that's one of his key defining characteristics, Joseph's immortality. Joseph cannot really die because every time he does die, he doesn't die off permanently. He can always be resurrected in almost every video, which kind of happens to almost every character because whenever a character dies, just come back. But still, that is a common reoccurrence throughout the SML universe. He can easily use his immortality to always come back and try to fight off his opponent in a different way. And he can also just use his super speed to speed blitz his opponents if they're slow enough. And in the more recent videos, he's gained the ability to fly thanks to his wings. And he's also shown off even more impressive feats, such as more of his speed feats, like when he ran from Florida to Mexico in just 1 second. And he even survived to match the people who shook the earth. And he even survived getting decapitated from a ceiling fan. And he even survived a meteor-sized explosion, survived being put in a microwave for a long time, and is strong enough to endure the energy projection of lightning. But as for weaknesses, however, Joseph is still a child and can still be very dumb at times, and plus he can still in fact die rather easily. I mean, he is pretty durable, but if you can damage him enough, and if you know how to fight, and if you're stronger than him, then Joseph is finished. You got it. Kenny is one of the main characters of South Park, and he is one of the 4 part of the boys, meaning that we have Stan, Kyle, Eric, and Kenny. And also Butters too, which I also count because he's a pretty cool character. But still, one of his main running gags is that Kenny would almost constantly die in nearly every episode. It was a running gag for a number of seasons until he was pretty much almost permanently killed off before then coming back again. And yeah, that's pretty much stuck with him ever since, forever essentially. But now we already know about him. I mean, most people do, unlike Joseph really. Let's talk about his powers and abilities. Kenny, despite his looks, is much more powerful than you might think. For example, just like Joseph, Kenny is also immortal because if he ever dies, he can always just get respawned each time. It is either just by getting reborn from his mom or just rematerializing out of thin air. And can even capable of teleportation as, respawning. He's even capable of flying in the air as a ghost, hammer space, meaning that he can pull any object out of his items throughout wherever, and capable of explosion manipulation with using his firecrackers. He also has slight Toon Force abilities because he was able to cause a nuke tank-sized explosion in a comedic fashion show at the end of Majorine episode. And now let's really talk about his main stats. As for his speed, Unlike Joseph, he is an average, really human after all when it comes to speed, or maybe sub-relativistic or relativistic reaction speeds, as he is comparable to his future self. And he also is comparable to the human kite, who could fly out the atmosphere for a short time frame, and could even fight Jimmy, who ran around the earth in a few seconds, so yeah. As for his durability, it's around street level or likely wall level, as he can survive being hit by a bus probably, and even survive getting run over by cars and cattle, being blown up by a missile in WTF, and getting hit by a meteor, making him pretty durable overall. And he also has a pretty fairly high stamina, as he's capable of doing a handstand for a prolonged period of time. And yeah, maybe also can't forget about Mysterion, Kenny's alter ego superhero life. Yeah, many of the other South Park kids are secretly superheroes, and that also goes to the case for Kenny, as he goes by the alias Mysterion. Now, don't get him wrong, he has plenty of other special abilities, even when he's dead. Mysterion has the power of Demonic Fury, which exudes a punishing melee attack. There's the Dread Rush, which is a 2-punch combo with the reverse knockback. The Dark Whisper, which is basically means pulls a foe and deals damage and lowers the opponent's defenses. And we even have the Cruel Fate, which he sacrifices himself to danger enemies. But as for his weaknesses, he is extremely unlucky, and he also has his soul trapped in himself. That way it will prevent him from even reviving himself properly, and his code has trouble communicating with his host. And it was stated that if he were to be killed by any immortal being, he would die permanently. He can also be defeated if his balls are farted on, and is pretty temporary. But still, he can still rather easily die, as seen by the multiple different episodes of the show. And while he is pretty durable, if you hit him with enough force, he will go down. And now it's time we talk about who would actually win this battle. Now, this battle is going to be fairly close since both characters cannot die, but we're mostly going to be basing this off mostly just who would win on the first try, meaning that who would win if the characters end up killing each other at first, but then they just ended up running off or something, never seen again. And I would say that Kenny would probably be able to win, because if you give both characters all their powers, abilities, and give them all their feats, I mean, Joseph did survive the planet being destroyed at several points, but ended up reviving. But Kenny also has the advantage when it comes to his superhero identity, that being Mysterion. Keep in mind, and don't forget, Mysterion has plenty of special abilities, such as basically the Demonic Fury, which is a punishing melee attack, the Dark Whisper, which pulls a foe and deals damage to the other opponent and lowers their defenses, and even the Cruel Fate, which allows Kenny to sacrifice himself to damage enemies, and even transform to the Dead Mysterion. And Dead Mysterion is even more powerful, considering that he's capable of haunting a foe and chilling them with a touch, and even applies defense down onto a foe, and can even confuse the opponent thanks to his special terror, and even returns to life and heals all the allies, well, his allies, not the opponent anyways. So meaning that if Kenny could die, he could easily possess Joseph and make him kill himself, really. Now, the only real advantage Joseph has in this battle is speed, because he is super fast after all, thanks to his superpowers in the SML episode, Superpowers. But Joseph just has way more special abilities. Also, South Park has been around for way longer than SML, instantly making Kenny the way more experienced one. So, when it really comes down to it, more often than not, Kenny would probably win. Now, if Joseph did use his speed to really speed blitz Kenny, then he would edge out a win or two. But for most battles, I believe that it looks like Kenny is going to be just walking away out the victor, making the winner Kenny McCormick. And yeah, that was the 36th episode of Multiverse Wars. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you later. Goodbye.